What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to yet another Touchdowns to Home Runs North to South show, guys. I know the schedule has been whack. I still got to find an exact time when to do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I also want to add this Saturday show in, which I have talked a bit about in other shows, but we're getting to it. I'm just working out my whole college schedule and everything like that. We're going through the motions. It's going to take a bit of process right now. I'm trying to get it all down, but it doesn't mean that I can't put out a show for you guys. And even if you missed the live show, which I know right now isn't on schedule, I always post the clips after to YouTube, so you can go catch up on that. The last one we talked about my AP top 10. We went through that. We went through what the AP just came out with. And today we got some great ones. First of all, I already have a comment in the comments section from James asking if we could talk some college football week 0. And James, you will get your request. So that's what I want to start off with. It's not what I was planning to start off with because I was just going to go. The segments that we're going to talk about today is Tennessee's starting QB situation and everything going on there and what that's going to look like for the first 3 weeks, because we know those first 3 weeks are huge for Tennessee into kicking off Josh Heupel's tenure at Tennessee. Lots of interesting stuff there. And then this whole Big Ten, Pac-12, ACC alliance thing that's going on, because SEC expansion, yes, Texas and Oklahoma are coming. This is kind of the response to that all happening, and it is definitely relevant towards the SEC because it is in response to what the SEC has done. So lots of great stuff to be talked about today, guys. Of course, as always, sit back, relax, and of course, enjoy the show. Give me a second here. The mic has echo. Here, check the mic now. Is the mic better now? Here, I'll try to fix it. Oh, shoot.
Test there. Is that better, guys? Let me know in the comments section. I think I picked the wrong mic, so that might have been my bad. But just let me know in the comment section before we get started talking about week 0, because we got some good games. One game I'm kind of excited for. Actually, you could say 2. There's another game. Mike is better now. Everyone. Good with the mic. JH Sports, welcome back. And he says the mic is better now. Okay, so that's all I need to hear. We got the right mic on now. Let's talk some college football week 0, because week 0, Nebraska, Illinois is probably the game I'm most excited for, because if you look at the schedule, that's probably the most competitive and big name teams that you're going to get in all of college football playing in this week 0, because the games we got are Nebraska at Illinois, that is at 1 o'clock on Fox. We have UConn at Fresno State, which is at 2 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. We got Hawaii at UCLA, which is going on at 3:30 on ESPN. So that is ESPN's game for week 0. These are all on Saturday, by the way, August the 28th. We don't have any Thursday game or anything like that. The games do start on Saturday. Next up is UTEP at New Mexico State, which is a 9:30 kickoff. Obviously, this is Eastern Standard Time because they are out west. That will be on Bally Sports, or what do they used to be? They used to be Fox or something like that. And then we got Southern Utah at San Jose State kicking off at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. Obviously, the Nebraska at Illinois game is going to be the most entertaining for me to watch, at least because Nebraska is the biggest team playing in this whole week 1. I cannot wait to see what they're able to do this year. I can't wait to see how they're able to kick off against Illinois, because currently Nebraska is a 7-point favorite in this game against Illinois. Illinois is a struggling team in the Big Ten. I think we all know that. So I expect Nebraska to win this game, but this is really a tone setter for Nebraska. You kind of get to ease into the season, and Nebraska has a tough schedule this year because we know that they also got Oklahoma on the schedule coming up. So you got to get it going versus Illinois. There's no questions about that. So Nebraska is definitely a game that I'm going to be looking out for. Hawaii at UCLA. This is the ESPN game. Not that I'm really interested in Hawaii, but UCLA, because UCLA the next week plays LSU. LSU travels to the Rose Bowl, which would be a very interesting game. And I want to see how UCLA is able to kick it out of the gates, because if UCLA has a game advantage on LSU where they've already played a game, they got to settle in, UCLA should be able to beat Hawaii in this game. If they don't, there's a problem there. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a guy that I'm very excited to see play this season at quarterback. He's definitely a top 25 quarterback in all of college football, in my opinion. Very versatile, very good with his feet. He's the guy that for sure I'm ready to watch for this season. And really, UCLA as a whole, of course, I go and grab transfer Zach Charbonnet, who I'm also very excited to see about how he's able to play at UCLA. This is just going to be a tone setter and really a eye test for how that LSU game is going to go, because who knows, that could switch my pick, because yes, I did my early pick video. Everything is subject to change. I'm going to do my SEC weekly picks as I always do. So that is going to be coming out sometime next week. Deciding whether to do Tuesday or Thursday. I kind of like Tuesday because I kind of like to post it a bit before the week and not just have it Thursday, which is a couple days out from the week. I like to give it time, but this UCLA game, depends on how they come out of the gate, could sway my pick. So that's definitely a game that I'm going to be looking out for. And San Jose State, you know what? Maybe even look out for that one, because San Jose State was a really, really good team last year. Who knows? We could see them be just as good as they were last year, but for sure, the two games that I'm really looking out for and the two games that I'm really excited for in this week one is got to be Nebraska at Illinois, first of all, at 1 o'clock on Fox. And we got Hawaii at UCLA at 3:30 on ESPN. So those are two of the biggest games of week 0. Other than that, you got 3 other games. Nothing too big time. But then when we get to week 1, we all know. Week 1, the official kickoff of college football, even though, yes, college football starts this Saturday. College football starts next Saturday. College football starts on September the 4th. If you want to see big-time matchups, if you want to see big-time teams going at it, if you want to see Clemson versus Georgia, Alabama versus Miami, Penn State at Wisconsin, all these amazing games, LSU at UCLA, come on September the 4th. So that is just my little talk about week 0. I'm excited. I'm going to have the games on Saturday, of course. Any college football, I remember even watching, last year around this time when we didn't know if college football was going to be a thing, and then they announced the FCS kickoff and we got to watch Austin Peay versus Central Arkansas. Had a blast watching that game. Any football is always fun to watch. Welcome back, college football. Now it is time to get into talking about the Tennessee quarterback situation. So Tennessee coming in this season, we all know Josh Heupel, new head coach. There's a lot of things that we already know about Tennessee. A lot of things that I've already talked about on this show that we could go and ramble on forever. And does any of it really matter now in this current time and situation? Because we already know what we think of each player. We already know what we think of Josh Heupel and the staff coming into Tennessee. We already think we know a lot of stuff going into Tennessee's season. But it really all comes down to what happens in the actual season. And that's what makes the offseason fun. That's why I love talking in the offseason, even though I love the regular season so much more and I love when we're actually playing. The offseason is kind of when you get to make up your own storylines for this season. You kind of get to make up your feeling for how you feel about each team. So Tennessee, I think we all have our own individual opinions on how we feel about this team going into this season. The QB situation is something that I've talked about a ton on this channel. What I was pitching, what I really wanted to see from Tennessee, the guys that I liked, I was huge on Hendon Hooker and I was huge on Harrison Bailey. Obviously, the two other guys in this QB race, you're going to have Joe Milton and then you were going to have Brian Maurer. So Brian Maurer has since transferred, and we just got news today that it looks like there is a front runner in Tennessee to be the starting quarterback this season. And his name is Joe Milton, obviously Michigan transfer. Joe Milton was a guy who was very highly sought after at Michigan. I know I got a couple Michigan fans back home. My partner on this channel, Bernie's a big Michigan fan. He loved Joe Milton up until he actually started playing for Michigan. And it just didn't work out at Michigan, but we all know that the talent and everything is there for Joe Milton to be successful. Again, this isn't for me to come out and really break down all of Joe Milton's skills, break down his stats from last year, because does any of that really matter if we're going to put him in a new system under Josh Heupel in Tennessee, if we're going to give him a new team, if we're going to give him new colors to wear on the field? Does any of what happened last year, I just spilt sunflower seeds all over my computer. Does any of what happened last year, does any of the stats, the coaching staff that he had last year mean anything for this season? Ultimately, no. Does any skill mean anything? Obviously, you need skill, but does breaking down, comparing these guys mean anything right now as fans just talking about it? No. I think what Tennessee is really trying to go for here, and what coming out is Joe Milton being the front runner for this Tennessee starting QB job, is Joe Milton could easily be the most talented guy there. He could easily have the most potential. He could easily have all these different things to be the best guy at Tennessee. But I also believe that Hendon Hooker and Harrison Bailey are also up there for having great potential to be a great quarterback at Tennessee. Does Joe Milton coming out as the front runner mean he is the best QB in this room? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that he's not. I'm saying not necessarily that Joe Milton is the best quarterback in this room just because he is currently leading the reports that he is leading this QB race. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best guy in the room. I think he's definitely got talent. I think he could easily be the best guy in this room. But I think Tennessee and Josh Heupel really are just going for, in these first 3 games, the guy that gives you the best chance to win. Look, there could be a difference between the guy that gives you the best chance to win and the guy that has the most potential and has the most firepower and the guy who is going to be the future of your program. But that doesn't always mean that that guy who has the potential and can get your program in a good spot in the next coming years or the next coming games doesn't mean that he is ready to go in and play currently. See, I think Tennessee's first 3 games is really going to depict their whole season, because if this is a team that wants to make a bowl game, which I'm pretty sure all Tennessee fans can agree with me that they want to make a bowl game, you got to win these first 3 games. I mean, look at their schedule. They start off the season with Bowling Green, Pitt, and Tennessee Tech all at home. And then after that is when you start getting into the meat of your schedule. After that Tennessee Tech game, you go to Florida, and that basically starts the tough stretch that Texas A&M has playing in an SEC schedule, which they always have to. So these 3 games, if you want to get to 6 wins, these 3 games are going to be absolutely pivotal, which means you need the guy who is going to give you the best chance to win. And if Tennessee feels that Joe Milton is that guy right now, put him in, because Bowling Green, I think, should be a win for Tennessee. They play that game Thursday, September the 2nd. That is going to be our first real SEC game that we get to watch. They're going to be our first team that we get to see play. I don't know why I said first real SEC game. They're going to be the first SEC team that we get to see play all season. I'm excited to watch that. I just want to see how this Tennessee team really plays as a whole, because so many questions really with every team, but you really look at the 4 teams who got new head coaches. Tennessee is one of them, and they're going to be a very intriguing team. So Bowling Green, definitely that September 2nd game should be a win. Pitt is going to be, it's really hard for me to call this a turning point in the season because it is the second game, and a swing game to call it that is absolutely insane. But I think this game means a lot as a tone setter for the rest of the season, because if this Tennessee team wants to be competitive 2 weeks later at Florida, if this Tennessee team wants to be competitive against your Georgias, against your Alabamas, against your even Missouri and Kentucky this year, Tennessee's got to be able to beat one of those if they want to be able to make it to a bowl game. So I think Pitt is a huge tone setter game. Pitt is not an easy out at all. They do come to Neyland Stadium, which is a good thing, but I still think Tennessee has a good chance of winning this game. And then you got Tennessee Tech, which also I think should be a win. Starting at the season 3-0 or winning 3 of your first 4 games, if you think that you can beat Florida, I think is absolutely pivotal. So right now, that's what I'm getting from this Joe Milton news, is that he is the guy right now, not necessarily the best guy in that room, not necessarily the guy with the most potential and everything like that, but I think Joe Milton is the guy right now who is going to put Tennessee in the best position to win. Joe Milton could easily start the rest of the season. Joe Milton could easily get this team to a bowl game, but that's just what I wanted to come and talk about, is that just because he's named the starting quarterback for week 1, 2, 3 doesn't mean that Hendon Hooker and Harrison Bailey are out for the rest of the season. I still think all 3 guys in that room have insane amount of talent, and I want to see all of them play at some point, because we've been talking about them so much that I got to see them actually play in the regular season. But we know there's only one quarterback on each team who can play at a time. So looks like Joe Milton is going to get his shot, his rebound at becoming a star in college football, kicking off with Tennessee. And Tennessee's going to be a good team this year. I know that a lot of people feel otherwise about that. It's just because Tennessee's expectation is more, but I think Tennessee, for what people give them credit for, Tennessee's going to be a good team this year. They got weapons around them. I'm not saying that this is a 8-win team or anything like that, but this is a team that could definitely be threatening into bowl territory. So Joe Milton starting at Tennessee. Let's see how he does, or front runner for starting against Bowling Green. Let's see how the rest of the QB battle goes. And Thursday, September 2nd, we will see one of these 3 guys suit up in the orange and white in Tennessee and take snaps for them. Right now, it's looking like Joe Milton is the lead for that. So that is another segment. We were just talking about Tennessee and their whole quarterback situation. In the middle of that segment, I spilt sunflower seeds all over my computer, which kind of sucked. But I do it all the time. Like, that's not the first time that that's happened. It's the first time that it's happened live, actually, during a live show. So that's pretty funny. But any questions? Anyone got any questions down below before I start talking about this Pac-12, Big Ten, ACC alliance? Because it's basically just going at the SEC. It's basically a rivalry at this point. You're just going SEC versus everyone. I might got to make shirts that say that. I got to get my merch back up and going because I love designing stuff like that. I just haven't had the time, man. College is beating me up so far. The move and everything, obviously moving countries, a lot of different stuff that I have to keep updated with, like switching banks, switching phone numbers. There's been so much complications with that and everything, but I wouldn't trade it for the world to be here. It is unbelievable. I tell you, on my walk to class every single day and back, see Williams-Brice Stadium each and every single day. Tell 10-year-old Noah that he'd be through the moon. It is truly a dream come true that I'm even here in this position in the South now that I actually get to be where college football is being played, and I'm going to go to some great games this year. So even though college so far, I don't want to say it's been rough. I've had an amazing time. Like, I've had an amazing first week. Yesterday was my official mark of my first week in college. I've had unbelievable time, but it is busy. It is busy. I can tell you that. Doesn't look like we have any questions down below, but guys, feel free. If you're in here, we got 8 people in here. Just drop a hello or anything. I love saying hi to you guys. Always appreciate your support before we get into talking about the whole ACC, Pac-12, and Big Ten alliance. So I'll give it about another minute. If any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below. Also, I should point out the shirt. I don't have you. If you see this in the background, I'm not sure if you can read it because I might be covering it. I got this shirt. If it's not SEC football, can you even call it football? As soon as I saw that, I was like, that's going in the background. I cannot talk about SEC football and not have that. Here we go. We got a question. Off topic, but I'm really curious. Being from Toronto, how did you end up being a South Carolina fan of all teams? When did you get interested in college football? I feel like I got to do a story time at some point in my YouTube career. It's not the time for it now, though. Maybe, I don't know. So I'll just tell it briefly. So back in about 2010, I want to say, my family got a timeshare in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, which is about 2.5 hours south of Columbia. If you know where Columbia, South Carolina is, where I'm currently right now. So we had a timeshare there. I was always a huge football fan as a kid, always a huge NFL fan. I'm a big Chicago Bears fan. I love the Carolina Panthers, always loved football growing up as a kid, but I was never really into college football until a couple years after when we started traveling there. I found out about this team called the South Carolina Gamecocks and kind of got into college football. I kind of always wanted to get into college football, but being from up north, it's not the like culture there. Like, we don't have college football the same as what they do in the States and everything like that. So I love March Madness. I watched college basketball, like March Madness, each and every year as a kid, but I never really got into college football. That was until I started seeing all this Gamecock merch and everything. I picked some stuff up. And then I remember in 2013 was when I really became a fan. I remember watching my first Gamecocks game. It was the 2012 Outback Bowl, which obviously the Clowney hit, or the 2013 Outback Bowl, sorry, that was the 2012 season, but they played that game in 2013. I actually got, it's funny, my roommate bought a Clowney hit flag that we got hanging over our couch right now in our apartment, which is pretty sick. I love seeing that each and every single day. But yeah, so that's when I really became a fan. My dad took me down to a game in Tennessee. We went to go see South Carolina and Tennessee in 2013. And that's when it really just hit me of how much I love this sport, because I remember going down to Knoxville as a little kid. I was only like 10 years old or something like that. And never in my life had I ever seen something like that. Like, first of all, there's 95,000 people in the stands, which the most I've ever seen in the stands is like 45,000 at Rogers Center, like where the Blue Jays play. That's the most I had ever seen before. So 95,000 was doubling that and over doubling that. So that was insane. But just the city, the colors and everything, and how much they really cared. Like, the fact that the city literally gets shut down, or the college town literally gets shut down for a whole day just because there's a football game on, and people take it seriously. And I take this sport very seriously. I take my fandom very seriously, and I just love having fun with it. And I love just the diversity of each fan base and stuff like that, the diversity of each team, about how each college town is different, about how each team's traditions are different, and all that kind of stuff. it's just truly such a special sport. So that's kind of how I fell in love with it. Was I went down to my first game in 2013, and ever since then, when I went to that game in Knoxville, even though I hate Tennessee, beautiful stadium, great fan base, even though I don't really like Tennessee, lots of good stuff about college football that I learned on that day. So that was amazing. Nathan B is also asking, do I follow the NFL and CFL? NFL, yes. CFL, no. CFL is a completely different game than American football. We play like 3 downs or something. There's 2 50-yard lines. You got like a 20-yard end zone with the uprights in the middle of the end zone. There is a lot of weird stuff about Canadian football, and it's just not the same. I can't do it, even though I'm Canadian and I probably should like the CFL. It's a lot bigger out west. Where I'm from in Toronto, the CFL, even though we do got a team, no one really cares about them. It's not a big thing out east. So if you go out west, though, to like Saskatchewan or Calgary or Edmonton, people will care a bit more about the CFL. But where I'm from, no one really watches the CFL. Two great questions. Now we will head on to our last topic of the day, talking about the ACC, Pac-12, and Big Ten alliance that is about to happen. Apparently, it should be coming out when I'm filming this video right now. It is 12:50 Tuesday, August 24th, and the reports are that this is supposed to come out later tonight, but I think we already know what's going to happen and everything. The Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC are forming an alliance. Now, does that mean they're forming a super conference? Does that mean they're trying to build their own version of the SEC? Does that mean they are going to have all 3 of those conferences mixed into one? I don't think so. I don't think that's what it's leaning towards. I think these will still each be their own relative independent conferences with their own conference champions and stuff like that and all that fun stuff. And you still will have to play an all-conference slate against the guys that you normally play against now. But I think what the main point of emphasis is with this whole alliance is to build schedule strength, because that is where the SEC is really winning right now. And that's where all these other conferences feel threatened, is because when you have guys like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas A&M, Auburn, all these kind of guys going up against each other each and every single season, and all of them each and every year, they always have good teams. Like, those are the programs that I just named off are teams that usually have top tier programs year in and year out. When you have to go up against those guys each and every single season, your strength of schedule is going to be huge. And with that, you're going to have a couple losses and stuff like that. But the way that people look at your schedule and the way that people look at your performances changes a ton when you have to go up against 4 or 5 or something like that top 10 teams in any given season, which obviously is what the SEC is about to get into, at least what I believe. You are going to have, say, big-time matchups week in and week out of the SEC. So what I think this alliance is doing is trying to build on the strength of schedule with really Ohio State, Clemson, Oregon, USC, Michigan, Penn State, Miami, Florida State. Like, you look at all the big-time programs, I think that the SEC, if the SEC was able to grab Clemson or Ohio State and get them to also confirm that they're switching over to the SEC, I think the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten are pretty much done. If Ohio State leaves the Big Ten, I think the Big Ten is going to start to crumble, and you're going to see guys start to leave. If Clemson leaves the ACC for sure, I think the ACC for sure starts to crumble. So what these conferences are doing to ensure that their teams stay and keeps them happy, because strength of schedule is going to be the main focal point of this whole alliance, is we're going to give you guys an alliance that is going to allow you year in and year out to play some of our better teams. I think this is definitely more geared towards Ohio State. Again, I said it, Ohio State, Clemson, USC, Oregon, all those guys. So I think you're going to see this Ohio State-Oregon matchup that we're getting this year. I think that you're going to see this again in the very near future with this alliance happening. I think you're going to start to see Clemson, Ohio State be a regular season matchup. I think you're going to start to see like USC and Clemson, USC and Ohio State, Florida State and Oregon. You get all these different matchups. It's really all just to build strength of schedule, because with their own conferences, you especially look at the Pac-12 and the ACC. I honestly believe that the Big Ten is fine for strength of schedule still. Like, Ohio State still's got to go through Michigan. They still got to go through guys like Penn State. You still got to go through guys like Wisconsin. I think the Big 10 still has a very meaty schedule. It's the ACC and the Pac-12. When you got Clemson in there, who basically could cakewalk throughout the season, not have any big-time games, when it comes time to pick in the college football playoff and you're picking between a undefeated Clemson who hasn't really played at anyone this season, and you got maybe like a one-loss Oklahoma who's played in the SEC, beat like 3 top 10 teams, beat like 6 top 25 teams, something crazy like that. Who are you going to put in? You're obviously probably going to lean towards Oklahoma, because if the ACC starts getting treated like the group of 5, it's going to be rough for ACC teams to try to get in there. So I think that's what this main focal point is. It's just to build strength of schedule. It's just for the Pac-12. Again, the Pac-12 too, strength of schedule isn't really there right now. Like, you look at the 2 big dogs, you're looking at basically Oregon and then USC, when USC is a good team. Their strength of schedule right now, you're going to have teams like Washington, who is good. You're going to have guys like Arizona State. You're going to have some good, decent teams, but it is not enough to build a meaty schedule around to look really, really nice towards the college football playoff. So that's all I think is happening here. Do I think that there is room for a conference merger in the future with these 3 conferences? I think so. Honestly, I feel like there might be a point if these guys do merge in the next coming years and the SEC does become what we all think it's going to be. I think that there could be a point where these 3 conferences take the top tier teams, however they want to decide that. They take them, they make them into a whole new conference, and you take the bottom teams and drop them to a group of 5 conference or something like that. So I think that that's a huge possibility. And then you're just going to be left with 2 super conferences in all of college football. You're going to have this Big 10, Pac-12, and ACC super conference, and you're going to be left with the SEC. Don't ask me where the Big 12 teams fall in all this. We all know the Big 12 teams are going to be on the move. I'm telling you, the American is starting to look a lot nicer than it has in the past, because you got good teams in there. You got good brand names in there. You got good cities in there, lots of places to make lots of money. And if you start grabbing some of these leftover Big 12 teams from when the Big 12 does end up crumbling, who knows? The American honestly could be the next super conference that they're able to go out and grab a Clemson or Ohio State. Or I'm just speaking out loud right now, but that's kind of my whole opinion on this ACC, Pac-10, 12, and Big 10 news is, don't be worried right now. There is no conference merger. It's just a schedule alliance. You're just going to see a lot more matchups like Clemson, Ohio State. You're going to see a lot more Oregons versus Florida States. You're going to see a lot more USCs versus like Miami, stuff like that. Those games like that you're going to see in the first 2 weeks pretty regularly in the next coming years between these 3 conferences. So that is my show for today, guys. I appreciate all of you tuning in. As always, we got another comment. Gamecocks 12-0, 10-2, worst case. Very, very, very bold take, my friend. But you know what? I love the enthusiasm. Go Gamecocks, as always. That is going to be my show for today, guys. So again, I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Definitely come back next time. I will try to do a show Thursday. Let me know if you have any segment ideas, because I'm always looking for suggestions. But until then, thank you for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day, and definitely come back next time.